Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 6:30.
WMAL. 7:07 on the Morning Majority. We are joined by a man who needs no introduction, but that doesn't mean I won't give him one. He's a bon vivant. He's a hail fellow, well met. He's a man about town. He's the congressional correspondent for your national journal. We are joined here this morning by Major Garrett.
That's a very elaborate way of saying I'm a crushing bore. Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
I'm great.
And let's just get right into it.
Yes, let's get into it.
Let's get into it because you have this incredible position that I have to challenge you on, that you actually believe that the University of Maryland Terrapin uniforms are, you like them.
Spectacular.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely fantastic.
Is all your taste in your mouth?
I'm telling you, they are outstanding. I love the helmets. I love the white-on-white home configuration for a uniform. I thought they looked fantastic. Now, look, I know the national audience looked at that helmet and thought it was something beyond bizarre.
Garish, ugly.
And I understand that. But I've always believed, I've lived in this region since 1990, that the Maryland state flag is among, if not the most beautiful, among the most beautiful flags in the nation.
Major.
And I love that on the helmet. That is so bold.
It's a great-looking flag.
It's a great helmet.
It just doesn't work on the helmet.
I think it works spectacularly on the helmet.
I'm revived in my opinion.
And
backed up.
And let me tell you, let's take stock of this from not just a design perspective, but from a marketing perspective. And the University of Maryland, like all these colleges, is very upfront about their uniform design. They wanted to create conversation. They wanted to create interest. They wanted to be a porthole for everything the administration wants the university to be viewed as in a positive light. All right. Oregon has Nike in Oregon. It had brand new uniforms on national television Saturday night. So did the University of Georgia. So did Boise State. All football programs of higher interest and more recent success than Maryland. Only one university in the country blew up Twitterverse with their new uniform design, and that was the University of Maryland. So by that definition alone, it's a smashing success.
Not all buzz is good buzz.
I'm telling you, people will get used to it. The guys on the field love it. It was a fantastic game, interesting, exciting. Maryland won. They're not going to turn back now. Get used to it. Well, the uniforms are here. And the helmets.
I dig the helmets.
I'm not really big on the pregame turtle helmet.
Yeah, I know.
The pregame turtle helmet, if you missed that, that's fine. Keep missing that one. They can keep that on the practice field. But the main game helmet, I think the main game helmet is spectacular.
We'll see how the deep pocket donors feel about it. That's the way to determine whether or not it's actually going to come back or not. Well, the only thing uglier than the Maryland helmet, in my opinion, may be President Obama's poll numbers lately, which are pretty bad right now.
That was a nice segment.
You like that? Smooth that over?
Every president deals with bad poll numbers at different times in his presidency. What the problem for the president is since mid-July, his poll numbers have been in one persistent direction, down.
Way down.
And when you look at polling data from a political perspective, what you want is trend lines that appear to be repeating themselves. That's how you learn you have something worthy of celebrating or worthy of worrying about. Well, they should be worrying right now because for the first time in the Obama presidency, there is nothing jagged about these poll numbers. The disapproval is rising and the approval is declining. And it's been working this negative V shape since mid-July. President has not been in the Gallup 3-day rolling average above 50 since mid-July. And he was at 38, 39 last week in Gallup. I'm not sure what the brand new numbers are this morning, but I'm sure they're in the same ballpark. Everyone is saying the same thing. The president's ability to create confidence about his leadership generally and his economic leadership specifically is in deep, persistent decline. And that's the backdrop for Thursday's speech. And I think the biggest question for Thursday's speech is not so much the contents, because I generally agree with what you said right before the 7 o'clock hour. Gridlock is probably going to be the entree of the day. The bigger issue for the president is on the question of the economy, which is number one in everyone's mind and will probably be the dominant defining issue in his re-election campaign. Is anyone even listening anymore?
No.
That's the essential question any president has to answer on any big topic. And for the Obama campaign and for the Obama presidency, in times of trouble, the default has always been, big speech.
Give a speech.
Big speech. That'll at least stabilize things, and it'll give us a chance to get back in the game. Well, I think the big lurking, shadowing political question in all this is, will a speech make any difference at all? Will it move the needle even a tick or two? Because if it doesn't, If the president's poll numbers a week from Thursday are more or less exactly the same as they were going in, that's a very bad
he's
sign.
toast.
It's hard to soar when you're talking about an infrastructure bank. I mean, it's not the same style of speech that he would like to serve him.
No. Though there are some merits to an infrastructure bank. There are merits to bringing back billions of dollars that are offshore, repatriate them at a low tax rate, create a method by which, in addition to the federal gasoline tax, you take that revenue, put a bank together that's not necessarily a winners or losers bank, but we have a backlog of infrastructure projects all over the country, finance them up front, and create a degree of permanence about that financing that's not dependent on the federal gasoline tax, but is from repatriated dollars that are just sitting offshore doing nothing. I mean, there is a logic to that idea, but you've got to make it happen. You've got to make it happen quickly. And an infrastructure bank, for whatever its policy merits, is not going to change the unemployment rate in 6 months.
It almost seems as if he's taken stock of where he is. He's looked at the poll numbers. He's made a decision that winning over the middle might be a little hard, and he's just going to go big and put up a big fight with Republicans. It's almost as if he doesn't care about solving the problems. He cares about defining what Democrats are.
Well, and he's very bruised and has been bruised through the better part of this year on every fiscal encounter he's had with Republicans. He wanted a continuing resolution earlier this year that funded the government at his levels. He lost that by $80 billion. Were House Republicans delighted with that deal? No, but a shutdown was averted, and Republicans won on policy points. Republicans won on policy points on the debt ceiling, saying we're not just going to raise it like every other Congress has previously. We're going to force you to do things you'd rather not do. And the president, in the main, did things he would rather not do. On fiscal policy, when he is tangled with House Republicans, he has lost more than he has won. And if he doesn't reverse that trajectory, and acceding to Speaker Boehner's wishes on the date and timing of the speech don't reinforce any sense that among liberals or Democrats the president's a true gut fighter. If he doesn't scrape with Republicans and maybe set up a scenario where, of course, he's not going to win, but at least he's going to fight, that gives him some chance with the base. But I tell you, looking at these numbers, looking at the president's deportment, the sort of vibe you get out of the White House, which seems not not as if the White House is throwing in the towel, but it seems oddly nonchalant at a time like this. I'm reminded of what the president told Diane Sawyer. I'd rather be an interesting and successful one-term president than a mediocre two-term president.
He may get his wish.
He might.
Major Garrett from National Journal is here. We'll continue the conversation coming up. We'll also get into Republicans. The poll numbers don't look very good for Republicans either, so we'll touch on that coming up. The Morning Majority, Brian Neiman, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson. Major Garrett from the National Journal is here. So you talked about the infrastructure bank. There's some talk about extending the payroll tax cuts from this year.
Which I believe on this program, at the beginning of this year, I predicted that tax would not
I asked you that question.
Would not die, and it would not live its one-year life. I said there is no way that tax cut will expire at the end of the year. I said that in January, and I'm now correct.
Okay, so you still believe that as well?
Oh yeah, it'll go one more year, and if it goes a third year, then it becomes permanent tax policy, and then the Social Security financing mechanism is fundamentally altered in plain sight that no one pays attention to.
So there are some things that the president will talk about in his speech on Thursday night that Republicans will be able to get behind. Then.
Maybe. It's all about timing and all about inclination. And remember, the super committee is sort of overwhelming and overshadowing everything. There are a lot of very important decisions that Congress has to make this September that it is reluctant to make because it doesn't know what the super committee is going to do about tax policy and about discretionary spending over the next 10 years or entitlement spending. And so you have this, what I consider to be outrageous creation on fiscal policy, a super committee that essentially nullifies the entire process of Congress, and I think a very destructive and cowardly way. I'm a huge opponent structurally and procedurally of the super committee.
Well, let me ask you about that, though. Is it possible that the super committee, is it still going to be discussed and decided upon by that super committee, or is it going to be John Boehner and Eric Cantor and maybe Vice President Biden and Nancy Pelosi doing the negotiations?
Look, you can filter things through, but you can filter things through the committee process as well. I mean, a super committee, if one vote shifts, a Democrat or Republican vote within the 12 on that super committee, and creates a majority, that one vote, that one shift nullifies positions taken, campaign statements made by an entire wing of the congressional majority or minority in one fell swoop. I just think that is bad policy. I think it's bad politics. And I think it's a bad way to run the railroad. And The supercommittee has a tremendous amount of pressure on it, and if it doesn't act, then it has this brain-dead mechanism of cutting up $1.5 trillion in discretionary spending, much of it from national security, or a large percentage of it, and nobody has any recourse. I mean, and that's not what Congress would do if left to its own devices. Now, look, people say, I'm frustrated with Congress's own devices. All right, well, then change the composition of Congress. Have a dialogue and a debate across the country about what you want your Congress to do, and send the signals to each and every representative. I just think this is a sort of super-empowered body that distorts what I like to think of as regular order, and what John Boehner said he would bring back to the House of Representatives, which is regular order.
Can't let you get away without asking you about the thing that everybody's talking about today, which was Jimmy Hoffa Jr.'s comments that we need to take out the sons of bitches. Actually, didn't say that. He said son of bitches.
Son of a bitches.
Yeah, but we all know that
He's always been an interesting grammarian.
We know, of course, that the more proper way to say that is sons of bitches.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we would say it in
quote.
Texas for sure.
That's a direct quote, and my apologies to the audience.
Well, I guess all those pronouncements about civility in the aftermath of Congresswoman Gifford's tragic and horrific shooting have all gone by the boards. And let's just stipulate and say what is obvious. Republican says that it becomes a 4-day story. It won't last for a half a day for Jimmy Hoffa, because there is a sense that, well, that's just rhetoric. Well, okay. I don't think so. I would condemn a Republican who said that as much as I'll condemn Jimmy Hoffa Jr. for saying it. I've met him. He seems like a pretty gregarious guy. That doesn't seem like the way he usually talks. But Democrats are amped up, and they're running, I think, more than slightly scared.
By the way, we still don't have a budget and the gas tax thing.
No, the gas tax expires on the 30th of this month. Now, many people, that's wonderful. Well, no, the gasoline tax, 18.4%, hasn't been adjusted since the mid-'70s, which is kind of a problem in financing overall federal infrastructure projects. That tax goes out the door. Oh, yeah, I guess your gasoline tax goes down. But the ability to finance infrastructure projects ongoing all across the country ceases immediately. Those projects are not easy to regenerate. Authorization for the Federal Aviation Administration expires on the 16th of this month. We don't have any disaster assistance in the pipeline right now. If you live in anywhere that was affected by the earthquake or Hurricane Irene, and you're not bleeding from the mouth, head, or some other part of your body, or you're in danger of losing your life at that very moment, FEMA has no money for you, not a nickel. Because right now it's in a posture of life and limb financing only, because the trust fund, or the ability to the funding for disaster relief, is so low that nothing of an ongoing recovery basis, small business, home, anything, no, there's no money for that. And if they don't resolve that by the end of this month, there won't be at all.
Man,
these are serious, basic governing issues. And what frustrates me right now is everyone's like, well, what's the president going to say? What's Congress going to do? Hey, forget about that. There are things that are on the calendar right now that are basics of government that are being neglected or fought over in a way from a partisan perspective that offer no prospect of resolution. And in fat times, when unemployment is 5%, nobody cares. But when you have in the last 3 months, as we did, aggregate net average job creation of 35,000, June, July, and August, in a labor force of 154 million people, every job counts. Every bloody job counts. And all these things have implications for jobs, and nothing's getting done.
All right, Major. Good to have you here. We always appreciate it.
You're lamped up this morning.
Yeah, you are. It's the helmet. He had a power helmet.
Give him some more coffee.